So in Magic, you have something called the Power 9, the best cards in the game. But what would that be in cEDH? What would be the best 9 cards of Commander? So I have a criteria. The card should be close to auto-included whenever you are in that color identity, or if you're not including that card, your deck should be questioned, or you're in a very strange strategy where you can't actually play that card to begin with. For example, the criteria of the original Power 9 was that every deck played pretty much all of the Power 9 if they could. Because they should. The cards were just so good. Now before we jump to the top 9 of the best cards in the cEDH format, in my opinion, my list, I would like to mention Time Twister, that is actually not gonna make the cut. My personal criteria was that the card should be heavily auto-include whenever you were on that color identity, and this, I don't think it is. Now some of you might say that's because it's a very expensive card, but there are people who build proxy decks that don't include this. In regular Magic this is definitely a Power 9 card, but in cEDH it's not. So let's begin at the bottom and climb upwards. Number 9. Mana Crypt. I don't think I've seen a list in cEDH that doesn't play Mana Crypt. By the way, fun fact, Soul Ring is not part in the main list of the Power 9. In cEDH, speed is the key and fast mana is how you get there. It is simple, it is clean, and you don't pay any mana for it. Number 8. Ranger Captain of Eos. If you have the color identity of white, you should try to include this 100%. You get so much from it. First up, you get to search your library for one CMC card. That's something. You can interact with it versus an opponent that is trying to win, making them unable to win that turn. Very hard to interact with that, by the way, as it is an activated ability of a creature. But also, the big one, the big reason, is you can sacrifice it to prevent your opponents from interacting with you during your turn, and that's amazing. It is a very safe card. It will always do something great for you, either giving you a tiny value, usually finding Esper Sentinel with this one, or a Ragavan or something of the sort. Or you're interacting with it. Both of those scenarios are great, but the big power play is that when you get to protect yourself from your opponents. Being able to win even though your opponents have interaction in their hand is huge in this game. Number 7. Ad Nauseam. So back in the day we had a Power 3, the 3 best cards in the game, and Ad Nauseam was actually among those. It's actually fallen down a little bit, as you can see, it's on the position of 7. Now the 2 other cards, by the way, on that top 3, they're already in this list. One of the big reasons why this is not that high up in the ladder is that you can't always play it. You have to build around it a tiny bit. There are some situations where your deck CMC is just a little bit too big. But otherwise, this is a true powerhouse, often considered a one-card combo if you cast it in your main phase. However, some decks that don't even build around it, unable to win with this as a one-card combo, still looks at it as a huge value card. Just a card that gives you so much cards to your hand that you could do cool things with. Number 6. Demonic Tutor. The best tutor in the game, hands down. A lot of other tutors in the game have various tweaks to them that are making them very appealing for certain strategies, but this is all around the just best. 2 mana, fine, whatever card you want. Have you ever seen a deck that is on black that doesn't play this? Right? However, it's not that high up on the list. You see, commander decks these days have become very consistent without tutor, or well, let's rephrase that, very consistent without demonic tutor. Back in the days you had a really big problem that you didn't have any good tutors for your combo if you weren't on black, so how are you playing this game without black? A lot of decks these days have solved that problem in various ways. But if you are on black, you are playing this. Number 5. Carpet of Flowers. This was actually part of the top 3 cards that once upon a time was considered some of the best cards in the game. At first glance people say, what? A green card? Well, it's a ritual, and you know how much cEDH players loves rituals. You see, the part that makes this card bonkers and pretty much overpowered is that you can activate it the same turn you cast it. Well, you have to cast it in your first main phase. Then you go to your second main phase and you get the mana in your second main phase. And usually this is performing somewhere around 2 to 3 mana, sometimes only 1, but usually 2. and mana has turned out to be more and more relevant in this game. Back in the days, you didn't need that much mana to win the match. You more or less just needed 2 mana to win the match. Pretty simple and easy. But these days we're leaning more towards Storm or mid-range, and both of those archetypes wanna have this. They wanna have a lot of mana. But Copper to Flowers have actually dropped up tiny bit in power level, as there are decks that don't play blue these days. That's very weird, but there are games where this doesn't do anything inside your deck. Even though that tiny development, this is still amazing and really strong. Number 4. The Casual All-Star Heuristic Study. Do you pay the one? So back in the days, this wasn't auto-included. Once again, when people were on this strategy, like Heuristic Study was mediocre. It was even considered a bit too slow sometimes. Crazy, right? There were decks that didn't include this even though they were on blue. But nowadays you do auto-include this. This is great. It's not that cEDH games have become longer, it's that people are casting more spells in general in this format. And this just takes absolute advantage of that. But another big reason why this has grown in popularity is that we have a more free-to-cast interaction that we could draw into. So tapping out like turn 3 or turn 2, you have no mana available, is still pretty safe with this sometimes. If someone is storming off, you are drawing your entire deck. That is great, because drawing your deck means you're drawing into your combo pieces, you're drawing into your fast mana, so when you get to your turn, you're gonna dominate. But you're also drawing into interaction that you can use against that person during their turn when they are trying to storm off. We're getting close. Number 3. And behind door number 3, Underworld Breach. This is actually a multi-purpose function card. Now, it's primarily a combo piece, but it's also functioning like a value engine. But it can also function like a rebuild plan. For example, let's say you're going for your fastest consult combo early in the game, it's being interacted with, and they go to the graveyard. Now, if you just cast your Underworld Breach, you can recast both of these 2 spells and attempt to win again. It is really hard to find a red deck that doesn't play this just because it can do so much. It has also honestly kind of more or less defined the metagame of cEDH. I often use Ad Nauseam as an example when I talk about the cEDH metagame, and just explain like a little bit on how it works, but honestly, I think Underworld Breach is claiming the spot over Ad Nauseam soon. Underworld Breach has proven to be an extremely efficient combo that can build various different storm packages that can win the game in various different color combinations. The most popular one might be the one that you're all getting pretty much tired of, Brain Freeze and Lion's Eye Diamond. But if you don't have access to blue, you can do pretty much the same thing with Auriok Salvagers. Or if you're on mono red or something of the sort, you can do the same thing with Grinding Station. So regardless of what your deck is up to, if you're on red, you're usually playing this. The only exception I can think of is you're on red, but you're also playing stacks. You're trying to rule of law. Still, in the end, I could see a world where people are playing Underworld Breach in that deck anyways, just because you don't always have Rule of Law effects in play. The big reason everyone is playing Archon of Emeria and Rule of Law these days is just of the existence of Underworld Breach. Alright, number 2. Mystic Remora. If you're playing blue, you're playing fish. I even made a video why I want this card to be banned actually. On paper this doesn't look that strong, but I remember when someone told me that Black Lotus was the best card in the game, I was so skeptic. Gain free mana? Who cares about mana? I want big 5/5s and 6/6 and stompy green creatures. You see, it's all about what these cards enable. This was the 3rd card, together with Carpet of Flowers and Ad Nauseam back in the days, that were considered the best cards in the game, as they were so consistent and always performed really good. Now, Mystic Remora doesn't always perform great. There are situations where this doesn't do anything. There are situations where people just put a land into play, cast a Mana Dork or something of the sort, and then nothing else. So this card absolutely has a floor, but you should see its ceiling. It's absolutely going through the roof. Mystic Remora can absolutely win matches. Now before we get to number 1, let's look at a few worthy mentions that I really considered for this list, but I don't think they make the cut. Commander has become more and more commander focused, where the commander is pretty much key for the main strategy. Therefore, Draenei Magistrate is actually really interesting. However, there's a lot of decks on white that aren't auto-including this. Jewel Lotus is the Black Lotus of the EDH format, and cEDH have definitely become more and more commander focused. However, there's a lot of decks out there that really don't care about the commander and sometimes don't even play this. But I could see a world where this definitely climbs up in the ladder. Intuition, a great card, but you do need to build around it. Fast as Oracle, heavily played, while a lot of people are screaming, ban it already. In my opinion, it's the cards that are enabling this that is making it great. But also, this is pretty much a dead card inside a deck. It's great with the combination of Tainted Pact or Consult, but if your deck is able to draw your entire deck and achieve infinite mana, people aren't winning with this. They're doing different things, even though they are on blue. Mons Goblin Raiders! Alright, I'm just joking. It has my name in it. Let's look at number 1. So before we reveal number 1, I think you can all guess it by now. It's not been part of the list, and it's definitely a powerhouse. And it's one of the cards that people are just also screaming, please ban it. Yeah, I don't think anyone was surprised about that. Dockside Extortionist is absolutely amazing. Now, it's not super good in casual games, but in cEDH it's performing amazing. So I have seen red decks that don't play this, and the only reason they do is because they're on strategies like Polymorph, or Divergent Transformation that is. Otherwise, you no-brainer out to include the Crazy Goblin. That honestly should see an increase in mana cost, or be tweaked. Regardless, it's probably never gonna be replaced. I think this is gonna be like the number 1 for a long time. Similar to a Black Lotus, this is a huge ritual and it's what the card enables that is making it great. But it just doesn't stop there. You see, Dockside is also a combo piece for so many variations of decks. Most popular one might be Emil the Blessed with Dockside, flickering it and making infinite treasures. But also, commanders like Corvold have turned Dockside into a 1-card combo, basically built their entire deck around the Goblin. Not just that, it's a powerhouse inside CC and Magda as well. But honestly, it's a powerhouse everywhere. It's auto-include, you kinda more or less have to play it, unless that Divergent Polymorph strategy. Or unless your metagame is extremely weird. That's my opinion of the best cards inside the format. But it's not set in stone, there could absolutely be tweaks to this. Now, we don't really gain much from this video in general, but it's a fun thought experiment. And a fun discussion too, and I hope you enjoyed that part of the video, and thank you so much for watching. Take care guys, see you next time.